So I'm sure you got the chance to network and get to know a lot of different people, different teams in your community, which is,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're probably learning more about what that means to be a part of that special warfare community. Even, I mean, I can only imagine. And then for the 2 deployments to Iraq, is that an EOD, like your group deployment, or is that like a bigger thing than just your EOD group deployment? How does that work?
So, so they got task force out there, right, that are doing different things. And so the first deployment was Baghdad. And so we got sent out to, I want to say it was like Task Force Troy or something like that. And
Okay.
and we were out there. We're doing our own thing. We're doing 9-line response. So there's just our platoon. So there's 8 of us. We deployed to Iraq, just the 8 of us. And then when we show up, a couple of us went to one base, and then the other guys went to a different base, and then we all get assigned. We got like our Army security forces attached to us, and then we were just sitting there waiting for the phone ring. The phone ring, you go do an IED, or you go do a cache or a post blast for a vehicle getting hit by an IED, or whatever. You were just sitting there 24/7 for 6 months waiting for the phone to ring. So that was a pretty. So back then, IEDs was very heavy. They had a lot of car. We had a lot of car bombs out there. We had a lot of EFP, so explosive foreign projectile, right? So it's like it just melts through your vehicle, like it's nasty. And we had quite a few of that going through there. But I think as a platoon, I want to say, man, I want to say it was like 700 or something like that calls that we did as 3 different teams. And I know my team, we did like, I want to say we did like 220 missions in 6 months. So that's like we did a lot of work every day.
And just so do all the branches have EOD flavors of their own, like
Yeah.
Army, Air Force, Marine Corps? And so when you're out there on a task force, are all of the multiple variations of EOD also available too, or is it just a certain group for a certain period of time?
Yeah, it's typically so first of all, so Air Force, Army, Marines, and Navy, EOD, we all go to the same school. So like we all go to the same school. We all just graduate at different times, right? So like for us, we go to we go dive school first, then we go to EOD school, and we go longer in the pipeline than other branches because we got to do underwater and some other stuff. And but we all get the same core value, like core skill sets, right? And then when you go deploy, yeah, it's like Air Force will be covering down over here, Marines will be covering down over here. Back then, typically the Air Force was more on like base response, and Marine and Navy and Army were more out in the field type of things, right? But that's changed here and there. So yeah.
I remember because it was kind of like all hands on deck, and there was just a big group of different people and players. I'm sure C2 and comms was a kind of a mess, and
Yeah.
everyone was trying to figure out who's who in the zoo. And there you guys are in the middle of it all, an 8-person platoon, just trying to do your best. And I can only imagine what that's like for chiefs, first classes.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. We used to not be called platoons. We used to be called detachments, so debts, right? So we showed up, we were a det 14. But when the Army and everyone else looks at a detachment, they think it's like this many people. So we started using their terms to where they realize there's only like this many of us, right? Because they would trust us like we were a 200-man, detachment doing all these things, and we're like, hey, there's 8 of us, and really there's 3 of us here, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So
communication matters, right? Words matter, and they have different meaning for different tribes, right? So there you go. So you're in Virginia or you're in Little Creek, you get the 2 deployments to Iraq. Do you promote at all during that time period, or does that not promote?
I made chief right when I was transferring from Virginia, going back to Japan. So I showed up to Japan, putting on chief. Like I found out I was on leave, getting ready to fly out, when I found out that I made chief when I was going back to Japan. So I made chief right where I was that.
Did you go through initiation then in Japan?
Yeah.
Okay. Damn, you missed Little Creek. I heard stories about Little Creek's Chiefs initiations, man.
Oh yeah. No, I would have loved to have gone through with
Yeah, I heard stories about there for sure. But Yakutka does a good job too, though. So you get there. Where are you going in Yakutka? What are you doing there? Is there a
there's a shore deck. there's a short at there. There's only a handful of us. There's only like 5 guys or something like that there. But we do all like base response, right? So if there's a suspect package anywhere or anything like that, or someone's doing construction, Japan has a lot of ordnance spread all over the place, right? Just like Guam does. And
Yeah.
so that's what we did. We did like Det Mary, Det Mary in Guam, right? So
Yeah.
we're the equivalent of them in Japan. So we covered pretty much all of Japan too.
Where was your guys' office space on Yakuza?
It's right over there. It's right over there across the street from SRF. Like it's on the water by the old movie theater and stuff like that.
Okay, got it. I know where that's at. All
Yeah.
right. So, and did you want to go to Japan?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I loved it out there.
And your
So
wife was excited to go check it
Yeah.
out.
yeah, we're all about that.
And did you guys have kids yet at that point, or no?
Yep. Yeah. My daughter, she was almost 3, and my son was 1, just about turned 1.
So I also transferred overseas with a wife and a little one. Is as excited as we were, it was stressful getting
Yeah.
getting the household goods packed out, getting all the stuff. How many suitcases are we gonna